Hello everybody and welcome back to Tyranid 40K as we continue our series on the Genestealer Cult 8th edition Tactics. So before we begin, this is actually the second time I've uploaded this video. First time, there was an error, and a special thanks to one of my subscribers for pointing that out. Matt Brenton, you saved the day. So this is our glorious leader we're talking about today, the Patriarch. Starts life as one amongst many in the fluff and goes on to become the leader of our cults. On the table he has a 4-up save, 5-up invuln, 5 wounds. He has unquestioning loyalty, which helps you keep those wounds because you can pass them on to friendly infantry within 3 inches. And on the table he comes in at 150 points. Well, actually, since you want to take a familiar, that's 12 extra points. So usually, since that's what you're going to be doing, you're looking more like 162 points. Now, he buffs Stealers. Your Genestealers within 6 inches get +1 to hit. And the way that most people are running this, they're creating what I call the Stealer Star. You're taking the Patriarch and cult ambushing him in with a whole bunch of Genestealers. Now, that is definitely a viable tactic. It's something that people are using, but that Death Star costs 357 points, so just keep that in mind. It's not a small investment. But he is a beast in close combat. Patriarch hits on 2-up. He has 6, Strength 6, AP -3 attacks that do D3 wounds each, and any 6 on your wound rolls are reserved at AP -6, 3 damage. So he's a tank killer, basically. That's how you want to think about this. He's our heavy support in the Codex. Even though he's put in the HQ slot, he's our heavy support. And this just keeps going back to what I'm talking about, that the way that GW has written for the army to work is not necessarily the way that we should be thinking about it. So he is a psyker. That also adds to his tankiness, because he can send those mind bullets out with Smite, and he also has a Brood Mind Discipline, so he can take 1 power from that. And people usually take Strength from Beyond, especially if they are running that Stealer Star list. That's the most popular choice because it buffs the Genestealers very well. So what are my thoughts on this guy? If I were to sum it up very simply, I would just simply say, your mileage may vary. He can kill anything, especially if you are doing that Stealer Star, you're taking a bunch of Genestealers with him. That's going to wreck face. But think about also how much points you're investing and how that can affect the cost per kill ratio. You always want to keep in mind that you don't want to have too many wounds. Isn't that an interesting thing, that you can have too many wounds going? How can I say, or why do I say this? Just think about it. If your guy wipes out a unit and there's the equivalent of 5 to 10 extra mortal wounds that would have been on that unit but now have to go in the trash, that's a waste. And so there is such a thing as overkill. Just keep that in mind with this guy. I love the model, but the way he is, he's unreliable in cult ambush, and to me that is the most important aspect of our army. So I'm hoping that in our codex we either get some changes to the cult ambush rule that make it a little bit better, or perhaps maybe they'll give him some of the love that they gave the Primus. That would be even better. So the safer bet, speaking of Primus, is to just take the Primus with your Stealer squads. As I talked about in the Elites video, that's goal number 1 for us. At least 2 very big squads of Genestealers. Each of them have a Primus to escort them in and make sure that you're getting them where you want them to go. You want to take as much of the random out of the game as possible. And the Primus is going to let you do that. The Patriarch is not. So especially in games under 1,500 points, I wouldn't really take him, I don't think. Maybe coming up to 1,500, a little bit below that would be fine. So that's just, like I said, because of the expense and the unreliability. You cannot put such a big part of your army under the luck of a single command point reroll and a prayer. Cult ambush is huge. So what would I do with this guy if I'm not going to take him in cult ambush? Well, the better option is, if you do want to take him, simply start him in your deployment zone. Put him on the table and use his incredible movement to get him where you want. You can get him close enough to the cult ambushing Genestealers to give the buffs anyway. It's very doable because he can move, he can advance, and then he can charge after that. So his movement is insane. Now, earlier I mentioned I wanted to talk about unquestioning loyalty. Yes, that special rule can help keep him alive, but Acolytes and Neophytes, which are cheap, aren't keeping up with his movement. His buffs are for Genestealers. His movement is the same stat line as the Genestealers. So that's going to be with him, and that's what's going to die when you try to save a wound. So think long and hard before sacrificing this, because the 15-point Genestealer, sacrificing that for the 150-point, or one of the wounds on a 150-point model, means that you're paying a 10% tax, basically, to keep that model's wound. So something to think about. And there's also the fact that the Genestealer itself is putting out, 3, 4, 5 attacks each round. So, not sure if that's something that you're going to be using a whole lot. Depends on, I guess, the situational events that are happening on the table. So this guy's best role is eating things that buff the enemy army, and especially enemy armor. If you need something gone, stick this guy at it. Even without the Genestealers, he's probably going to just wreck face. The biggest issue I have with him is the fact that you can get 2 Primus for the same price. So in terms of just HQs, if you're just thinking in terms of, I need HQs for my armies, take the Primus. Take 2 Primuses, because you're still at less than the cost of 1 Patriarch. And you can control that cult ambush. So if you're just thinking HQ, take Primuses. But if you want a super effective tank that also buffs units and can add some psychic might to the army, and you're playing a larger game, or at least you already have, your troops, your Steelers, your Primus, all that squared away for deep striking, then go ahead and include one. In my opinion, I personally like the Patriarch better than the Cult Leman Russ. Leman Russ is 130 points naked. For 150 points, you get this Patriarch. And I think for a mono Genestealer Cult list, that you're getting more out of a Patriarch than you would out of a Leman Russ, even if you did load it out with quite a bit of extra points put into it. So, as always, a breakdown of all this is going to be in the description for you guys to review. I hope that this series is helpful so far to you fellow cultists, and I'd like to know your thoughts on the Patriarch. Are you using him in a different way? Is there something perhaps that I have not seen? Are you having some luck with the Stealer Star? Are you going to continue with that? Or is this something that maybe interests you in at least trying, where you deep strike or cult ambush in your Genestealers with the Primuses and just start a Patriarch on the board? Because if you were going to take a Cult Leman Russ, just try it a couple games for me. Switch the Patriarch in, take the Cult Leman Russ out, and see how things go for you, just as a test run. I'd be interested to hear your experiences and the thoughts, in the comments below. So let me know on that. I also wanted to take a minute to thank you guys so much for all the likes, comments, and subscriptions that have happened so far. The channel is less than a week old, and I had no idea that we'd have so many views and comments and subscriptions in only like 4 days. So I'm loving our chats and the comments, and I just want to say I appreciate it, guys. Thank you very much for the love you've shown so far. So again, I'd like to know your thoughts, your opinions, your experience on the cult so far, on the Tactica so far, and if you've been putting this into your lists, some of these little ideas that I've had, I'd love to know your experiences with them. So thank you guys very much for watching Beer in 40K, and we'll be continuing on with our Tactica series soon with a look at the Primus and the Magus. Take care, guys. Bye-bye.